We got more V-Clan collection reveals, and they are very interesting. Be it the units that are being brought into the set, or their very special skill description. Stand up! Vanguard! Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we've got some more V-Clan collection reveals. Since the last video where we talked about these cards, there's been 8 more clans confirmed with what type of units you're gonna get, as well as the typical Bushiroad sprinkle description that gives us a hint of what these cards are going to do. So, without any further ado, let's jump straight into these new clan supports and let's see what these 8 clans will bring to V-Clan Collection Volume 1 and Volume 2. So first off, we got Pale Moon, and Pale Moon got these units. And yes, if these units don't look familiar, that's because they're completely new designed units. And for some reason, the Grade 3 gives me mad Rosewall vibes for the ReZero fans out there, and it's pretty on theme as it also got the killer bunnies on the artwork as well, again from a ReZero Season 2 fans out there. But it's get more interesting if we take a look at the skill description of these cards, because for the leftmost units we have Amusing Bunny, and its description reads as a Grade 1 bunny to help the beast tamers. Combine the power of the different bunnies to create the most spectacular show. So this is interesting because now they put a more emphasis on the bunny units within Pale Moon, but more on that once we take a look at the other description. So for the middle unit we have Bunny Beast Tamer Assistant Chlorina, and Chlorina has the description: she gets Drive +1 when there's a lot of bunny grade 1s in your soul and as your rear guards. She may be just an assistant, but her skills as a beast tamer are first class. So we probably get a grade 2 that can swing with Twin Drive just like Bless the Dark, but it has this bunny grade 1 condition of amount of cards in your soul or on the field, which is interesting. And maybe she can do it in the rearguard circle as well, but that's just pure speculation at this point. Now, if we take a look at this Rosewall guy, which is our new grade 3, his name is Bunny Beast Tamer. I think it's pronounced Thrives, but I could be wrong here. And his description reads as: the more bunny grade 1s is in your soul and as your rear guards, the more powerful your board becomes. Furthermore, with the aid of the other beast tamers, such as Golden Beast Tamer, the show will be even more exciting than usual. So this is pretty interesting because now we have this sub-archetype with bunnies and Beast Tamer. With the reprint of Masquerade Bunny, aka the Grade 3 Searcher, makes also more sense because not only is she a Grade 3 Searcher, which is really nice, but she has the bunny keyword, which is also incidentally a Grade 1. So there's more application or more power to her, which is great that she's not actually getting reprinted. But we have other Grade 1 bunnies like Brassy Bunny and the reprinted Midnight Bunny. Now, Midnight Bunny being reprinted makes a lot more sense than beforehand, and all these Beast Tamers also really interesting. I'm very curious of how Golden Beast Tamer gets brought back with this, as Golden Beast Tamer was a really fun deck right at the gate of the beginning of the V-Series. So I'm very curious of how I can reuse her again, as that looks pretty interesting. But besides this description around Grade 1 bunnies and Beast Tamers, we don't actually know anything else. But it's a very interesting design approach that they're gonna take for Pale Moon. So I cannot wait till we get the actual skill reveals. Now, on the same day, we also got the reveal for the Gold Paladin units, and we already knew that it was going to be the Liberator cards. But now we also see the support units, which are of course Fallon and Joseph. So let's take a look at what the description of these units reads so we can see what Gold Paladin has in store for us. So for the Grade 1, I believe it's Grade 1, Fast Chase Liberator Joseph, its description reads as: he has the ability to both draw and countercharge when placed from deck. I believe this is the exact same skill as the original version of Joseph, so that's great. More draw power and countercharge, so more resources, which is something that Gold Paladin can always use. And with how Percival and Aglaville work with pretty counterless heavy, and probably core is going to be the same, having more in archetype countercharge can be a nice thing to have. Then for Liberator of Royalty Fallon, we got the description: an attacker that calls more allies to the board when he hits. So on hit pressure with multi-attack potential in itself. Now that's nice, but we know that on hits can be kind of tricky, especially if they're on hit on Vanguard. So hopefully this can also activate when just hitting into a rearguard, making it more versatile and probably also a bit more powerful. But we have to wait and see until we get the actual skill. Now, as for Prominence Core, aka Bluish Flame Liberator, Prominence Core, we have the description. Powers up every time you call a rearguard. If that rearguard is Agloville, the boost will be much bigger. He has another skill that gets enhanced if you have Percival in your soul. So somewhat of a cross ride with Percival, and then inherent synergy with Agloville, because Agloville can keep bouncing itself back to the hand, and every time you call him, not only will you power up your Vanguard, but it gets a much bigger boost than you would call anything else. So it has somewhat similar to Agravane, because Agravane also gets more power as you call more units, because once you attack with him, you can superior call even more units. But probably with Prominence Core we go a different direction, but we have to wait and see what it's actually going to be and how this cross ride with Percival will work and how good Agloville is going to be. I'm very happy that at the very least Agloville is going to be reprinted, and I already secured my copies of Percival before that card starts rising the moment we see this skill, and this is actually going to be very strong. But for now, that's all just pure speculation. Now, next up we got the new reveals for the Murukumo units, and all these units are brand new units, at least I've never seen these before, but their description are pretty interesting, and also the artworks on these cards are pretty phenomenal. But let's take a look at what the description reads. So first off, for the leftmost units, which I believe is a grade 2, as the description reads as grade 2, as its name is Stealth Fiend Fright Sickle, and the description reads, and that's the reason why I say grade 2, a grade 2 that can power up and draw by returning to your deck. So that's interesting. So it is somewhat similar to, I want to say Charge, as you can activate some extra power and it returns to your deck and then draw a card, which then compensates for itself. I mean, that looks pretty good because it refunds itself, but you get extra power on the board. Now, is it going to be free? We don't know. It can be a Soul Blast, can be a Counter Blast. It all depends on what the specifications are of this skill. Then for the other card, we have Stealth Fiend Lady Silhouetta, and her description reads as, by revealing a grade 2 or lower unit from your hand, you can call a card from your deck with the same name. Furthermore, even if its attack is guarded, it will remove an opponent's rearguard. So we've got Shadow Stitch, which is interesting, but more importantly, this immediately combos off with the previous card that we just talked about, because if we had that grade 2 Fright Sickle in our hand, we can use Lady Silhouetta to reveal it, superior call it from the deck, and then immediately use its skill to power up and send it back to the deck, and next turn, or whenever we can use Lady Silhouetta again, depending on the description, we can reveal it again from our hand to superior call it, and basically do that over and over and over again with the same Fright Sickle without needing to call it from our hand. That's an interesting synergy, and I'm very curious how this will interact with all the other cards within Murukumo. But then we get to the new boss unit, which is Stealth Fiend Lord Nura Hyoga. And Hyoga has the description, the Lord of Hyaki Hyagyo. Okay, the home of the Stealth Fiends. Okay, so that's a place. So is Hyaki Vogue then also a resident of Hyaki Hyakyo? But I'm digressing. Increase your drive checks for each Stealth Fiend follower in play. With the extra drive checks, brings the vengeance of the demons down upon your opponent. I like the sound of that. It has a nice ring to it. But what I'm curious about is that, does this mean that Stealth Fiend is gonna be a sub-archetype within Murukumo? That could be really interesting. Now, of course, we already see Stealth Fiend Fright Sickle and Stealth Fiend Lady Silhouetta, and the unit itself is also Stealth Fiend Lord. It could mean that this card specifically only works with these three, or it just asks for a unit with Stealth Fiend in its name. And that means the tables are wide open, or the playing field is wide open, or whatever that saying is, because there's a lot of other Stealth Fiends within Murukumo, and in premium sense, there's even more. So that's really interesting, and I'm very curious of how that skill is actually going to be worded out, and if it's gonna get one drive check for each rearguard or for each two rearguards, and with the fact that it has Axel, that can add up a lot. So yeah, that could be interesting. Now, if we move over to Dark Regulars, and you probably already see the title of this video and probably the thumbnail if I'm putting it on the thumbnail, but yes, Bladewing Reijy finally returns to Standard, or should I say V Standard, V Premium. But on top of that, we also got 2 other cards together with it, and they are pretty interesting, but also somewhat to be expected of Bladewing Reijy. Because first off, we have Bestial Squeezer, which I assume is a grade 1, and her description reads as, it has 2 skills to increase your soul without reducing the amount of cards in your deck. What I'm guessing here is that either its soul charges from the drop zone, so you can put it into the drop. We've seen this with, I believe, Variant's Killer Tail, as well as Emblem Master. That could be nice. But what I also assume what is going to be is that it will probably count as multiple units in the soul if you have a specific unit as your Vanguard. Probably Bladewing Reijy, but they could make it generic, but I don't know if that will break the clan to some extent, especially in Premium. So we have to wait and see till the specification of that skill. Now for the second unit we have Blaze Foresight, and this unit's description reads as, I can't add any cards to the soul because my hand is full of grade 0s. ... This will be a convenient unit that can solve situations like these. Whatever that means, I have no clue. It probably will mean that if you brick and you have a handful of grade 0s, you can solve the issue? But how? This doesn't help us anything. Maybe it allows us to send those triggers back to the deck and then draw new cards? Maybe. I don't know. Put it in the comments if you have a suggestion what this could mean. But this could literally be anything. But let's go to something that's more tangible, as we have Bladewing Reijy, and Reijy's description reads as, an ability that amplified by the numbers of Wings of Destruction, which basically refers to the amount of cards in Soul. When it reaches 15, the finale will descend upon the field. So what I assume is that it's somewhat similar to Gastile, with that it gets more skills if you have multiple cards in your Soul, and then probably once you have 15 Soul, it gets his max potential out. What that will be, no clue. His previous counterpart just gave it multiple crits and a buttload of power. Probably will be something like that, but I don't think it's going to be stronger than Gastile, because if it's stronger than Gastile, and Gastile had the 20 soul condition, that basically makes Gastile obsolete. And I don't even want to think about the implications of that will be in Premium. Yikes! Now, Doom's talk out of the way, let's take a look at another clan, because we also got the reveals for Mega Conley, and for Mega Conley we already knew that we would get Giraffa, but we get the entire Giraffa package this time around, which can be interesting, and their description is also very interesting, because first off we have Pupa Mutant Giraffa and Elite Mutant Giraffa. These are, I believe, the grade 1 and the grade 2. Both of them power up the more rest rearguards your opponent has. Their skill can be used in all Mega Conley decks, not just ones centered around Giraffa. That's nice, more generic support. Now, there is an issue with this description, and that means that it still is dependent on your opponent that they call units so you can rest them. That's a big of an issue. Maybe they force your opponent to call units in rest. That could be nice, but we have to wait until the specification of the skill. Now, luckily, this issue is somewhat addressed with Giraffa, because for Evil Armor General Giraffa, we have the following description. Paralyze your opponent's rearguards, a skill that prevents standing, but this time it's extremely aggressive. Your opponent will not escape from Giraffa's paralyze even if they don't have any rearguards. That sounds powerful, or at the very least, very interesting. Maybe we get something like a stun the circle, that the moment your opponent calls unit to that circle, that they then immediately need to have to rest them, so they're screwed either ways. Maybe something like that, or it just forces your opponent to call cards from their hand in rest, and they cannot stand any in the next battle phase or next stand phase, which is also pretty annoying. I'm very curious of which direction you're going to take, but at the very least they address the counterplay against Mega Conley Stun, which is just not calling units in the first place, or calling a board that can remove itself at the end of the turn, which is also very annoying for something like Mega Conley. So this is going to be interesting. Now, the next clan that we see the reveals of is, surprisingly, the Old Legion for Grand Blue. So the Pirate Noble Pinot Noir returns, and I know for some players these are fan favorite cards, so I know that some Grand Blue players are very happy with these cards, but their description is also very unique and interesting. First, let's take a look at the support grade 1, which is Sea's Trolling Banshee, and her description reads as, you can select any card to mill from your deck when you ride her. That's already really good. Also, as a rearguard, she has the skill to draw while also increasing the size of your drop zone. Again, a pretty good skill. So the draw skill as a rearguard is probably very similar to Wailing Banshee or the other grade 1 Banshee, that Soul Blast 1 to draw a card when it's called from drop zone. Probably somewhere in the same ballpark as that. But the fact that you can mill any card from your deck when you ride her is basically a column bard. Depending on the cost, can be really ridiculous. So that's already a pretty nice skill. But then let's take a look at the Legion pair. And we first take a look at the grade 2, which is Pirate Belle Peanut Blank. And her description read says, she gets resurrected when Noir attacks. So multi-attack. She has a reliable skill when guarding too. So this is interesting because it's a grade 2 that resurrects once your specific grade 3 Vanguard attacks, and because it's a grade 2 it can intercept, and because it has a very powerful or interesting guard skill, that means you can reuse it over and over again every time that you resurrect her in the battle phase, and then during your opponent's turn you can intercept with it and use that defensive skill, which could be really interesting and also pretty powerful. But then if we take a look at Pinard Noir, his description read says, he has a skill that activates when blank is called. This new style of Grand Blue becomes more powerful the more triggers are in your drop zone. So blank recalls herself once your Noir attacks, and the moment that she's called to the field, Noir gets a power up, or at least a skill will activate depending on whatever that's going to be, thus being able to use this turn after turn after turn, because you can put blank back into the drop zone if you just intercept with her, which then gives you even more guard potential as well, or at least you get a defensive skill active. These two on its own look like a pretty slick engine that can be used turn after turn after turn. But then the whole new style of Grand Blue being able to become more powerful the more triggers on your drop zone is also pretty interesting. Because usually milling triggers is a negative thing, but depending on this, that could suddenly be flipped up on its head and could open up for some shenanigan play. So I'm very curious on what that's actually going to be. Now for the second to last clan, we've got Oracle Think Tank, and these reveals I honestly did not expect, as here are the reveals for Oracle Think Tank. Yeah, I know, you have no clue who these cards are because they're brand new, but what's interesting here is that this Tsukuyomi support. Of all the things for Oracle Think Tank, I wouldn't have suspected that we get more Tsukuyomi support, and honestly, I'm very happy with that because I like Tsukuyomi's playstyle, and this could be really interesting because let's take a look at the grade 1, at least I assume it's a grade 1, as we have Miku of the Round Moon Sai. And Sai's description reads as, when she is ridden, superior right, goddess of the crescent moon, Tsukuyomi. So another way to get consistent rides into Tsukuyomi, which is nice to set up your whole engine. This could be nice, and this also hints to more Tsukuyomi support. However, if we read the other two cards, they don't really reference Tsukuyomi anymore, but maybe we get that once we see the others, once we see the actual skills themselves. Because for the grade 2, at least I assume, we have Miko of the Mirror Moon, Fujo, and she has the description, she has a skill to put a normal unit from your drop on the top of your deck. This could be some combination play with either Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu or with the Ichikishima grade 2, as when they reveal from the top, you get those extra effects. This could be a nice combo, but besides that, I don't really know if there's any other ways to abuse this. At the very least, I know there is a card that has guard restrictions depending on what type of card you reveal at the top of the deck. I believe it's a grade 2. That could be used, some kind of diviner unit, but I don't know if that's any good at all. It probably has to do something with the Tsukuyomi engine, but I have to see the skill before I can make actual judgment of how this is supposed to work. But then we see the new main grade 3, at the very least I assume it's a grade 3, Miko King of Moonbow Tsukumiyori. And Tsukumiyori has the description, what happens when you dry check a normal unit? ... Exclamation mark, question mark. Put Fujo, the grade 2, on the top of your deck with its skill and find out. Okay, so we probably have a unit that does something when drive checking normal units, and now we can stack normal units on top of our deck, and with the grade 2 we can also stack another normal unit from the drop zone on top of your deck. This probably has to do with this skill, everything together. But then I'm very curious of how Tsukuyomi comes into play with these cards, because the grade 1 interacts with the grade 1 Tsukuyomi, so I'm curious how this is supposed to interact and if there's actual complete Tsukuyomi synergy here, or this is some kind of combination play with Tsukuyomi that you can either go into the Great Freeze Tsukuyomi or you go into this boss unit to do a different play. I'm very curious how this is going to pan out. Oracle Fintech always comes with the wackiest type of skills, so we have to wait to see what it's actually going to do. At the very least, we see more deck manipulation, but instead of going for triggers, we now go for normal units, which is an interesting take. And then for the last clan that was revealed, we saw the skill description for Neo Nectar, and the reason why I say that is because we already knew about the Neo Nectar cards, as they were of course the Musketeer cards. Now for their units, we see the following description. First off, we've got, I believe, the Grade 1 Water Lily Musketeer Ruth, and her description reads as, when another rearguard is called from the deck, her skill allows you to retire her to countercharge. This is nice, because Neo Nectar didn't have any countercharge before this unit. Now keep in mind, there's probably only 2 archetypes that can use this, and those are the Maiden units and the Musketeer, because it definitely specifies that called from deck and tokens aren't called from deck, so probably the token playstyle cannot use this, but at the very least Musketeers are able to use it, and Musketeers are gonna need the countercharge because almost every unit that does something Musketeer-y cost a counterblast, so this is nice to at least keep your engine going every single turn. Now, as for the Grade 2 of the Legion pair, we have, I believe, Lycerus Musketeer and not Lycurus. I'm gonna go with Lycerus Musketeer Sol, and his description reads as, his skill can call the top card of your deck onto the rearguard circle. What happens if you call a trigger unit? Exclamation mark, question mark. So it's basically plussing, but it does maybe something special when calling a trigger. Maybe the trigger gets power, or maybe you can send the trigger back and call a new unit. We have to wait and see until the specification. This is just hinting that there's going to be something when you superior call trigger, which is nice because superior calling trigger is always the worst type of feeling. And then lastly, for the main Grade 3, we have Lycerus Musketeer Vera, and her description reads as, her skill will call the top 2 cards from your deck to the rearguard circle. If both units are Musketeers, she will get Drive +1. Power up your comrades even more if you have Sol on your field. So this Legion interaction, which we came to expect with these old Legion pair reintroduction or retrains. But interesting enough, we have a triple drive Vanguard for Musketeers. Now I don't know if that's actually good for the archetype, because mostly you want to superior call all your Musketeers over and over again, and drive checking multiple cards means you're gonna go through your deck even faster. So if there's no way to replenish your deck, it could be an issue, because even with the older Musketeer support, you went through your deck quite fast. So we have to wait to see how this will interact and if this is any good or not. So let's hope there's more to it to Musketeers, but there probably will be. But with that said, those are all the reveals for the upcoming V Clan collection set. Let me know in the comments down below which reveals you're the most excited for and which clan you're going to pick up once these sets are going to be revealed. Keep in mind, there's only 8 more clans left to be revealed, but we know all the main units of those clans because we have Royal Paladin, Shadow Paladin, as well as Aqua Force, Bermuda Triangle. All those clans we already know the units of, but we don't know the entire lineup and we don't know the description. We're going to delve into those cards on Sunday once we get the last 2 clans revealed that day, and we're going to talk about all those 8 clans and we get a full picture of the upcoming V Clan Collections Volume 1 and Volume 2 set. And probably maybe a week or 2 down the line, they're gonna start revealing skills, but I think there's gonna be a big gap between the reveal skills because we still have Monster Strike as well as Lyrical Monasterio between now and then. So we're gonna have to wait for more information for these particular sets. At the very least, on Sunday, we can start speculating for all 24 clans about what they can potentially do, as we have a description for all the units. But that's the end of this Cardfight update. Join me on Saturday when we go over all the weekly card of the day reveals for the 5 Great Nation, and of course on Sunday once we're tackle the last 8 clans for Clan Collection Volume 1 and Volume 2. As always, this video has been brought to you by lovely patrons over patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I've been Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!